All right, I'm back. So we talked a little bit about sports earlier. I wanted to bring a little bit of lighter side to sports talk interviews and maybe a couple rants and all that kind of stuff. So before I get into my playoff cliches, I want to talk a little bit about a couple things. So the Leafs have Hutchison, whose wife is expecting anytime soon, and Muzzin's wife is going to be expecting within the next couple weeks as well here. And you know, it's a special time of year, and you never want to be in a spot where you're questioning a guy's heart or desire when he wants to be there for the birth of his child, because that's obviously more important than hockey. But I think before we get to that point, and a guy's got to sit, or a guy's going to miss it, or going to miss a pivotal game, I think you got to rewind it back. And for professional hockey players and basketball players, and any professional athlete, you kind of know when your playoffs are. So my thinking is, you can probably count back 9 months, and if that's the case, maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't try having a kid at around that time. Just maybe, just a thought. Maybe you should just, why don't you try it right after the off season, right when you're done. If you were done in April last year, that would put you somewhere in December or January. If you were someone who has playoffs like in the NFL in January, well, maybe you plan it out so you have your baby in the off season in March. You just got to count 1 to 9 and figure it out, boys. All right. So that's my it's not so much a rant. It's just more like, okay, well, guys are going to rag on if Muzzin can't play in Game 6 because he's doing the birth of his child, but you shouldn't be ragging on him for wanting to be part of the child, but you should be ragging on him for maybe thinking ahead 9 months ago. So, and then my other rant, we obviously saw Binnington last night. He put on a performance, first NHL game for St. Louis, unbelievable, on the road in a hostile environment. And this poor guy had to answer dumb-ass questions because some hero in San Jose, reporter loser, decided to... Oh, I just happened to find these tweets from 6 years ago when he was 19 years old. He's 25 or 26 now, that were potentially, and I use the word potentially, very sensitive to certain demographics, certain races. Racially sensitive would probably be the best word. And I say potentially because it was more questioned as a thought than an actual going out and, tearing apart a certain culture. He didn't tear apart a certain culture. He didn't specifically say he wanted a cab driver. He wanted to listen to music instead of listening to him talking a different language. He didn't identify that it was Arabic. He didn't identify that it was French. He didn't identify... The only thing he identified was that it wasn't English. So, to be racially sensitive towards somebody, maybe it could have been a Caucasian speaking a different language. He just felt like he would prefer to have quiet, or maybe he would prefer, because he's paying for a service, to maybe have the music on. And the whole burqa thing, yeah, I understand that. That could be racially sensitive. But the kid was 19 years old. The hero, I don't understand why he would do this. He drops it the night before the playoffs. That was done completely on purpose. And then a Winnipeg reporter picking it up, publishing it, and having the kid have to answer all that kind of stuff. A little bit ridiculous. And it just goes to the fact that Winnipeg fans, Winnipeg journalists, everybody's nervous, and they're trying to do anything they can to gain an advantage. I understand the gamesmanship. We're going to see lots of gamesmanship in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, but that's just dirty stuff. That's like dirty politics stuff. You don't need that stuff. If you want to beat St. Louis, show up in the rink and you beat them fair and square. You put the puck through the net. You don't get the media asking them a bunch of questions on game day when starting goalies aren't available. That's complete bullshit. And that's garbage. That's junk reporting. Like that's actually the lowest scum of the earth to be able to do something like that. If you want to question his ability to make a stop, go right ahead, but don't question something from a tweet that he made when he was 19 years old, and he's been in the league now and he's been, he's 25 years old. That doesn't represent anybody. Things that happened 5-10 years ago don't represent what people are. People learn from their mistakes, and they grow and they become better people, they become role models. And all these Twitter heroes that are holding people hostage because of something they heard 15-20 years ago, it's complete bullshit. No one's perfect, and don't throw stones if you live in a glass house. It just pisses me right off when people do shit like that, because we're all here trying to learn, trying to get better. And to nail someone for a comment they made just because you have no friends and you want to make a statement, you're just a fucking loser. You're just a loser for doing something like that. So that's my rant for today. That's my 5 in a game. I wanted to get into some of the cliches that you're going to hear over the next little bit here, and they're the same every year. So just be prepared for what you're going to hear. So after game one, certainly after game one, whether you win on the road or lose on the road, you're going to hear the cliche from the losing dressing room. You're going to hear, well, it's just one game. You got to win 4 to win a series. You're going to hear things like, they outplayed us, or they made one more play than we did. You're going to hear things like when you're down 1-0, it's going to be a long series and it's a game of adjustments. You're going to lose a game in the playoffs. All those kind of things you're going to start seeing and hearing. If you go down 2-0, you're going to see if you go down 2-0 at home and you got to go on the road, you're going to start hearing, well, they came in here and stole 2 from us, so we just got to go and steal 2 from them. You're going to hear that cliche. If you lose 2 on the road, you're going to hear the old cliche, well, they took care of their business, they took care of their home ice advantage, and it's time for us to go do the same and take care of our home ice advantage, and that's what we're going to do. And so you're going to hear a lot of those things, and you'll probably hear more and more as series goes along that, we're starting to put together a full 60, or we didn't put together a full 60 and that's why we lost, or it was a lucky bounce tonight, but we felt good about our game. Where it gets really interesting is when you lose at home on an odd series game after game 1 and 2. That's where it gets really interesting. So if you're down 0-2 and you lose the third game and you're on the road, you're done. Like you're done. Your probability is like 97% done. It's only actually, even if it's at home and you're down 3-0, there's only 4 teams in the NHL history that have ever come back. Obviously the Flyers and the Kings have done it most recently, and then the Islanders in the 70s and the Leafs in probably the 40s, I think it was. And then the Boston Red Sox have done it, and I think those are the only 5 teams that have actually come down from 03 in the 4 major professional sports. So, when you're down 0-3, there's not a lot you can say that people can't just say you're just blowing air up their ass. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot about, you gotta win 4. 4 is what takes it to win the series. You hear that after game 1, you hear it after game 3. And then the big one after game 3, if you're down 3-0, or even if you're down 3-1, especially if you're down 3-1, because after you win one game, you hear, we're just going to take it one game at a time. We can't focus on winning the series. We just got to focus on the very next game. We got to focus on the very next shift. We got to focus on the very next period. We have to put together a full 60. But if we focus on one game at a time, then that's what we're focused on. We're not focused on game 7. We're focused on we're focused on game 5, you know. So you're going to start seeing that, and then the narrative kind of changes, because if a team that's up 3-1 loses again and it becomes 3-2, now it's a swing game where they've got all the momentum. And the team that's up in the series, you start hearing the cliches from them saying, well, we're still up. We just need to put one game together. They still got to win 2. You know, you're going to start hearing, well, we just got to win 1 of 3. You know, if a series is tied 2-2, you're going to start seeing, well, it's a best of 3 and we got home ice. You hear that a lot. Or we got to win 2 out of 3 now. You start hearing all these cliches where they start cutting the series in half, and you know, the procrastinators and the negative people of the world who don't think that a team has a chance. The team's down 3-0. They start rolling it. They're rolling it backwards. They're not looking at glass half full. They're looking at glass half empty. Well, I don't know how this team is going to win 3 of the next 4 games. I can't see this team beating that team 3 out of the next 4 games. Well, let me tell you something. Every game is a different game. There is no momentum from game to game. There is momentum from shift to shift and period to period. But from game to game, there is very little momentum. The only momentum that you might get is if you have a good last 10 minutes. Even if you lose that game, you can carry some of that. But by and large, the first 10 minutes of a game that's the starting point of where momentum starts every single game. And the only thing that carries over from game to game is injuries. Bumps and bruises and soreness and injuries. That will play a factor, but momentum doesn't play a factor game to game. It's different every single game. And that's why you can see swing games all the time and things happen differently. The team goes down 2-0, they can come back. We've seen it. Washington was down 2-0 last year to Columbus, and Columbus hit a post in overtime and could have gone 3-0. Instead, Washington scores in overtime in game 3, and they go on to win that series, and they go on to win the cup. And the teams that win championships, whether it's basketball or it's football or it's baseball or it's hockey, it's the team that will refuse to lay down even after they've been put on the ropes. And there's so many times where a team, all they need to do is put together a good at-bat. They need to put together a good drive, a good couple shifts in a period, you know, get a power play going, get a good PK going, whatever it is, that can start swinging momentum. You win that game, and then you focus on the next game. And the teams that can't focus and they can't outwork and outplay an opponent from shift to shift until that very last buzzer goes is the team that's going to lose. And that's why the 7-game series, when a team wins a 7-game series, that team is better. Injuries might play a factor, and a team might not have a guy that's 100%. A team might not have a game changer, and that might play a big part of whether a team was truly better or not. But at the end of the day, it's a 7-game series, and you better be prepared to go to war and fight for every inch of the ice or the field or the court, because when it's all said and done at the end of the 7-game series, that's the better team. That's why we have championships, to determine who the better team was. And sometimes the seeding and the rules and all that kind of stuff is still all bullshit. You still got to go through everybody. And if you want to be the best, you're going to have to beat the best, whether it's in the first round or the Eastern Conference Final. And I've said before, you needed 3 things. You're going to need health. You're going to need some puck luck or bounces, or the ball to go in the basket, or some kind of weird call to go your way. And then you're also going to need health, right? So health, bounces, and then you're going to need a short series somewhere where you can get your rest. And when you do all those, when you can get all those things, then it starts to line up for your team for a chance to win a championship. So that's my cliches, and that's my thoughts on playoffs as we enter what is probably the greatest couple months in sports. I love it. So enjoy your day, boys. GWG, heading back from Peterborough into the GTA, into Hamilton, and getting ready for a busy weekend. Let's go, boys. Let's go.